You're listening to Trek FM.
Welcome to From There to Here, Trek FM's... Oh, big yawn there. Holy smokes, I'm still exhausted after Vegas. How are you doing, Aaron?
Well, I'm taking a different route. I'm doing a kind of a temporal anomaly sort of way. So I'm going to be going to Vegas after you. Even though you have already been, I don't know exactly what time I had. I suppose I had a really good time. You've already known that. I'm going to do that after we record this.
Oh, you had a great time, man. There was lampshades involved, and, you know, I don't care what Larry Nemechek says about you. I think you're a great guy.
Okay. I think we're going to have some Portal 47 words there.
Well, welcome to our 50th anniversary Rewatch project, where the hosts of the network get together and talk about all 729 episodes and movies of the Star Trek franchise for you. And we tear them apart.
Well, didn't you have enough Star Trek at Vegas already? We still need to do the episodes?
No, I did not have enough Star Trek in Vegas.
Oh, okay.
I need
more.
more.
You can never have enough Star Trek.
No. Well, today we're going to talk about a Voyager episode and a Deep Space Nine episode. So let's start with Eye of the Needle. Harry Kim discovers an eensy-weensy, teensy tiny wormhole, and Tuvok sends in a micro-torpedo, which we've never heard of before. Torpedo gets stuck, and we discover on the other side of the wormhole is Romulans. Dun, dun, dun.
And you know, we're of course, since we're only a few episodes into the series, we're going to get home. This has got to be a way home, right?
Okay, I watched this episode for the first time when I was 14, and I was devastated when they didn't get home at the end of the episode. I was absolutely devastated because I'm like, how can they not get home? And then when it was a time travel, and then when the guy died and he wasn't able to give them their messages, man, this episode broke my heart.
I was 26, I think, when I saw it, so I was not quite 14, but I loved it. I like the science fiction sort of angle to it because it feels very much like you could use that idea in different settings. So I thought that was nice that it wasn't just a holodeck broken story or whatever. And yes, early Voyager uses time travel and differences in time quite a bit, but at the time, I did not really have a problem with that. I actually really liked the time travel stories, and I thought this was done really well. And I think the best part of it is it concentrated more on the emotions that the crew is feeling, and you could the disappointment was palpable when they find out that it's like, they're all excited. Oh well, yeah, we didn't get to go home, but this Romulan delivered letters from the crew. They're gonna, at least everyone's gonna know we're okay. And they're like, and Tuvok is like, well, and you can just see just the look on everybody's face fall when they find out that the Romulan actually died a couple years before they left the Alpha Quadrant.
Yeah, this would give a Twilight Zone episode its run for its money.
Very much so. Yes, it has that feel to it.
I love this episode. Like, I think this is a great first season episode. I do agree with the hosts of To the Journey that this should have been the season finale, but yes. I still think it's a fantastic episode. Like the idea of and how they executed the episode, in that when we first started talking with the Romulan, who was played by Vaughn Armstrong of like many millions of rows, it was done as audio only at the beginning, right? And you have this conversation with Janeway in her nightgown, and she's trying to get one-on-one with this Romulan, and it's a really, really touching scene, and she's playing to his humanity. Well, yes, he's a Romulan. You know what I mean, though. She's playing to his emotions and his heart and his love for his family. And she's saying, look, we're lost. Why would I be asking you these things if we weren't lost? Like, I got no reason to lie to you. And that's such a great scene.
And I like that it also makes the face of the enemy not so one-dimensional.
Yeah.
It's just, there's some depth there. It kind of reminds me a little bit of almost like a World War II story, just sort of that, or any war story on just that, just appealing to the enemy and then putting their, it's like, okay, this is for family. It's not just, there's a bigger story here for these people. In fact, it's kind of interesting if you look in Janeway's bedroom or her cabin, and I don't think it's something we see again. There's a 1930s looking grandfather clock and a gramophone in the background. There's some very, era appropriate for that sort of World War I, World War II story items sprinkled throughout there, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Oh, I've never noticed those. I'll have to look.
And that might kind of work in with earlier that this episode actually went over budget because of the holographic novel scene that they saw. And you might be thinking, what? There was no Janeway has a holographic novel. No, they shot it and they used it later. So this was supposed to have been the birth of her gothic novel episode.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just moved to somewhere else. So I think it was kind of interesting that could have been part of this episode, which I'm glad it wasn't, because I think it would have taken something away from the whole story.
Yeah, I think it would have been too much, because we've got a really good B plot here as well, with Kes and the doctor, and Kes working with the doctor and seeing how this one crewman is treating him, and going to Janeway, and it's this ramifications of after the what the heck was that? What's the Next Generation episode? Data, the Measure of a Man. What constitutes life? And it's such an interesting topic. We watch Star Trek and we think that Data and the Doctor are people because they're played by actors and stuff, right? Now, I don't think that the technology is ever going to get to the point where a robot is going to have this type of personality, or a hologram is going to have this type of personality myself. So I don't think that this will ever become an issue for an artificial life form in our future. That's just my belief. Right, and I was
one of those people who actually sided with Dr. Pulaski early on. Mm-hmm. I was like, yeah, it's a really, really good robot. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that it's sentient. It doesn't mean it has feelings. And I was never very popular for that, but it was just like, yeah, we're supposed to believe he is, and we're told. I mean, once you are told he's supposed to be in universe, then fine, you do that. But objectively, if you were looking at it, there are holodeck characters that interact and act more alive than Data does. Mm-hmm. And and eventually we get the Doctor, who is far more realistic and it feels more alive than Data does.
Yeah, the personality that's involved with him, right? Like he's ornery and whatnot. It seems like all the doctors are ornery.
and as somebody who has had a heart transplant, that's that's a pretty accurate description of a doctor most of the time.
But it's neat how Kes is going to bat for this guy, because she goes to Janeway and she's like, so because he's a hologram, he doesn't have to be treated with respect or consideration at all. And Janeway says, well, I've heard the opposite end of the spectrum, and people are complaining about his attitude. And what I really liked about this episode was when Janeway went to talk to him, and she didn't go in accusatory, didn't go in and saying, I've heard these bad things about you. She just went in to talk to him and said, how can I help you? And it was almost as if Kes had already convinced her at that point, to treat him as an individual and help him grow. And I really liked that scene with Janeway and the Doctor as well.
Yeah, and I think it was great that she also approached it not as if like, okay, I got to go find out what's wrong with this thing. It was like, all right, I'm going to be open-minded enough to approach him as a person the way that other crew members aren't necessarily.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, no, it's a really good episode. There's some really cool stuff in this, and I think it's a highlight of season 1. Going back on this rewatch, I love season 1 of Voyager. There's some great stuff in it. There's some great character development, and it's got a different feel than the later seasons of it. It's a little bit more paced in season 1, and I like that. I like the pacing of season 1 a lot.
One of the things that I miss about season 1 later, and it's not that Janeway gets like more tampered down or something, but early you get a super excited science Janeway early on in Voyager.
Oh, yeah.
Like when they're talking about like, what if we do this and we can put a carrier weight, and it's just her and B'Elanna going back and forth, and you can see the whole scientist vibe that she has going, and that she really was a scientist before she was a captain. Mm-hmm. So I love being able to see that, and just her energy, I think, is really interesting.
Well, it's like when we watch Picard talk about archaeology. I love watching Picard talk about archaeology, you know? He's so into it, and he's so excited. And Patrick Stewart does such a good job of his enthusiasm, you know? Like, I know you don't like Mask, but in that episode, he's all like, oh, look at this. And he's like, yeah, and this is on the back of it. And I don't know. It's pretty cool stuff. So.
As far as just like, you know, just the general technology and some of the things inside of it, there was a couple things I noticed. Like, there's the fold-up screen on the captain's chair that we don't really ever see again very much, where she pushes a button and it goes, it just sort of raises. It's like the center console in a SUV.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. And are like the day and night cycles on all, you know, Federation and Alpha Quadrant beings clocks synced up, because it's like it was nighttime for Janeway, and it was nighttime for the Romulan. It was like, that's always convenient that it's the same day and night cycle. I thought that was interesting. I always wanted them to just, you know, he's like, you know, she's like, good night, and he's like, well, it's morning here, so I'm going to go have breakfast or something.
Yeah, we're used to that with our Trek FM schedules.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, if we're having that issue, then I can't imagine that alien races would, you know, in other parts of the galaxy wouldn't have a similar thing. Yeah. And the other question is, like, do Romulans age the same as Vulcans, given that they're kind of from the same base?
I would think so,
because then Telek Ramor should not really be an old man by the time they get back to, like, I don't know why because he did not look old, and if he doesn't look old, then he's certainly...
Well,
in Vulcan
70 years,
not.
like you know, Spock was apparently like 40 or whatever. I don't know what it was, what the numbers. People are emailing us right now and getting mad at us, but
right.
But like even still, like 7 years later, he's over 100. That's aging, right? He's an old man,
right? It just felt like Telek Ramor died a little young.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't have been as old as he was kind of projecting by the time. Well, I guess if it took 70 years to get back to the Alpha Quadrant, yes, they would be, but It just depends.
Well, I think we should probably move on to our next episode. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Excellent. Visionary, Star Trek D Space Nine. O'Brien gets radioactive acuted or whatever on the ops station, and
does he get superpowers?
He does. He gets to travel in time ahead, like 4 or 5 hours at a pinch, and we see lots of cool things like O'Brien dying and the station blowing up. And at the end, he has a Harry Kim type event happen to him. So I like this episode. I think it's kind of cool. I mean, I always like seeing the episodes where our ship or our station blows up and then it doesn't really happen. Like, you know, again, cause and effect. The first time I saw it, I was just like, what is going on? You know, and so this too, like I remember watching the preview for this episode next time on D Space Nine, and like, I'm like,
right.
Oh my goodness. You know, it's like freaking out, right? But I like seeing that because it's not something that you see very often. This is the only time you see D Space Nine blow up in the 7 years, right? So it's cool. I like it.
As a Starfleet officer, and especially one coming from the Enterprise, if you saw yourself across the way on the promenade, I don't know if it would just be that sort of like
nonchalant.
Yeah, it was just like, oh look, that's odd. Like, no, that's a big red flag that something is about to happen. That you should go immediately to ops or to the doctor or something. I don't know. It was. Well, then he passed out, so I guess he did actually go to the doctor. So.
It's just another day at the office.
That's
Weird
true.
is part of the job.
And I did love when he was telling to Quark, it's like, you know, he was going to fix the damage the Klingons did to the holosuites, and there's like, okay, there's no damage, and what Klingons, and then...
No, there was damage. The Klingons damaged it.
No, I know, but did he know there were even Klingons there to begin with?
Yes.
Okay.
Poor O'Brien, though. O'Brien must suffer.
Yeah, he gets... This sort of thing happens to him a lot. He's almost the... Not Harry Kim of Deep Space Nine, but he has that... the unfortunate, you know, he'll get accused of a murder he didn't commit. He gets that sort of...
O'Brien must suffer. That's the term that's come up with it.
Yeah.
So it's just, he gets put through all these bad things. Like the scene when he's like in the hallway and he's like looks over at himself and he's like, Miles? And he turns around and he gets shot like with that laser. I just think like if he wouldn't have said anything, he might have been able to dodge it or something, because Starfleet people can dodge lasers, but he's resulted in killing himself. Is that a form of suicide?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. That's a Metatrex question, I think, more than something we can't answer.
Excellent. Anywho, I don't have much to say on it. I mean, it's neat. We get the Romulans again. The Romulans are starting to ask for payment for their information for loaning the cloaking device, and they want to know what's going on with the Dominion and everything like that. But
right, we're starting to get more about the Jem'Hadar and Odo's people, and that's starting to factor in.
Mm-hmm. But overall, decent episode. It's not my favorite. It's not the worst episode of Deep Space Nine, which I think we'll be talking about in this block.
That's true.
Excellent. Well, did you have anything else you wanted to say about these two?
No, kind of what you were talking about, though. I'm really enjoying the earlier Voyager episodes. I haven't watched them for a while, so it's kind of fun to go back and see that even though they're not exactly what they ended up being, they had a really interesting vibe to them. Mm-hmm. And I think they kind of hit their stride at that point where there had been enough Star Trek put together that they were able to do season 1 episodes that were actually okay compared to, like, say, maybe TNG, which had some lacking, had some and problematic episodes too. So
excellent, right on. Well, where can people find you, Aaron?
You can find me on Twitter, and my username is GeekFilter, and you can also find me in the Babel Conference Facebook, Trek FM's Facebook user group.
And you can find me here on the network with new episodes of Melodic Treks, which is all about the music of Star Trek. And Aaron and I are also both hosts of our Patrons Roundtable. So if you would like to donate to us, you can reach out to us on the Babel Conference, and we'll tell you how to do that and how to get involved with our Roundtable. But you can also find me at Brandon-Mutala on Twitter. Also, every once in a while, I'm on the Babel Conference. So join us again tomorrow as we talk about 2 episodes of Star Trek Voyager with Ex Post Facto and Emanations, where we meet Mark Twain the alien.